I'm Cassidy Quinn, and this is Mentally Together. Because whether you can see it on the surface or not, we are all just trying to keep ourselves mentally together. And no matter what our brains are experiencing, we're not alone, we're together. Of course, we're all also very different and unique, and we experience different things in our lives, and when those things happen, we react to them differently, like when it comes to talking about hard things, for example. If you go through a mental health struggle or experience something traumatic, for some people, they prefer to put it all out there, wear your heart on your sleeve, or others tend to keep it more private because that's what feels good. For me, you may have guessed, if you have listened to more than 20 seconds of any episode of this show, you know that I tend to be the one that puts it all out there. Sometimes it feels scary, but usually it feels worth it in the end. Because I always think about how if we don't talk about things, then no one knows, which is also great and safe. Like, if you don't want everyone to know something, they don't have to. If you are struggling right now, you can put on a smiling face and pretend like everything is fine. And sometimes that is so necessary. Other times, putting things out there, letting it out, takes some of the power away from that thing, or from anyone who might want to use that thing to shame you. Basically, it just gives everyone an understanding of this is who I am and what's going on with me. Right now, this is something that is on my mind a lot as I am grieving the loss of my wonderful mom. And now it's been about 2 months, which is crazy. But that means I am now getting back to doing some things like this podcast. And sometimes I feel like if I don't show up to something visibly crying, if I look like I am enjoying my day and my life, then people are just going to assume, oh, she's fine, she's over it, we're done with that now. And that is so very not true at all. But also, sometimes it is easier for me to show up like that instead of just breaking down and crying in front of everyone. So I might not want to show up to some kind of fun, supposedly happy event. You ask me how I'm doing and I just start sobbing and telling you everything in that moment. But at the same time, I also want you to know what's going on with me so that you don't show up and go oh my gosh, hi, how's your mom? How's life? Is everything so wonderful? Because then I'm probably just going to start crying out of nowhere, and I don't want that either. I remember the day that I posted on social media that my mom passed away. That day was really, really tough because it made it seem more real to put it out there for everyone to know, but at the same time, it was also helpful to me because then everyone just knew. Anyone, for the most part, that was going to reach out to me about a work thing, send me an email, invite me to something fun. Now you understand this is why I haven't been posting, this is why I might cancel on you last minute, or why I might not respond to your texts for 5 million hours. You're just going to know that underneath whatever I'm presenting, I'm struggling and I'm sad, and yeah, you're just gonna get it instead of me having to pretend to be or feel anything else. But I also know that there are people out there that feel the exact opposite, that don't want anyone in their business and to know everything, and you can just grieve on your own time and be sad and no one needs to know, and that is very, 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 very much okay. I have so much respect for the silent strugglers, the people that keep things close to the vest, as they say, and not let them out. But for me, maybe I'm an oversharer, whatever, call me what you want, but that is what feels genuine and right for me. So my guest today is someone who is definitely on the same page as me when it comes to sharing things with the entire world. Someone who has gone through a lot in his life and has been on the internet or TV for the entirety of it. It's Logan Lynn. Logan is a songwriter, producer, filmmaker, TV personality, activist, and a huge advocate for mental health. I met him a few years ago when I was doing a TV segment about the Portugal the Man Foundation. The band has a whole charitable arm, and Logan helps them run it. The main thing I remember about meeting Logan for the first time was he was so sparkly. And I'm not just talking about his personality, because that is very sparkling too, but his entire outfit was sequins. Even his shoes were metallic. So my first impression was that Logan is this sparkly, fun, happy energy kind of guy. Then, of course, I went home, I did what we all do, or at least I hope I'm not the only one that does this. I Googled him, I followed him on the internet, and I started to learn much more about him on a deeper level. I learned that he's a human who's endured trauma, battled addiction, survived suicide, and put out a lot of awesome music in the world. He's been doing that since 1998. He's currently getting ready to release his 10th studio album, which comes out on January 21st. It's called New Money. And when he's not making music, he's doing so much good for the world. In 2017, he received the prestigious Award of Excellence from the National Council for Behavioral Health. And in 2018, he was named one of the Portland 50 by Kink FM. So I loved talking to Logan about trauma-informed therapy, making the internet a better and safer place, and living life as an open book. Now, before we get into it, just a heads up, this episode does discuss some serious topics, including addiction and suicide. So please make sure to take care of yourself and only listen to this episode if and when you are ready. And please know that the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is always there for you. So I've put the link and the phone number in the notes for this episode. Now let's get into it with... He's an artist, an advocate. He wears his mental health on his sleeve, his Gucci sleeve, obviously. It's Logan Lynn. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, for dressing up in your best Gucci as always. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know whose show I'm coming on.
If anyone is listening to the audio version, you should go watch the video because he's got a great background, lots of Gucci, and he's just the fanciest man ever.
Appreciate that.
How are you doing? Loaded question, but also I genuinely want to know.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I am actually doing pretty great. I know that is a weird answer, kind of borderline inappropriate for this time in the world, but like I really feel like I'm in a happy time in my life personally and professionally. And so, that has not always been the case at all. I'm really letting myself answer that way because it is the truth. I'm doing good.
I love that answer because A, great to hear that you're doing great, and B, great that you're like you've thought it through and you're like, yes, I'm owning that I am doing well right now. Because I was gonna say from the outside, it does look like you're living your best life in music videos, recording music, all these exciting things happening. But I very much appreciate that you even outwardly never pretend that it has always been that way. Like you still, saw you posting about recovery month a few weeks ago. And I think I appreciate that. I'm sure there's a lot of people that appreciate that and it helps a lot.
I mean, it would also just be crazy for me to try to act like I've always been this person because so many people knew the other guy in active addiction or, in mental health crisis, however people experienced me before 2008 is still very pronounced for a lot of people. And so I think, I always own it. I always own who I've been and who I am now. And I also, just feel really lucky that I can answer that way at this point. I've been happy for a while now, actually. And during 2020, during 2020. Oh my God, how many 20s?
2020.
During 2020, I really was, all my dreams came true at the exact same time as the world fell apart and people were suffering and just everything was awful. So I had, I think, a good year of everything is great over here. And I realized that 99.9% of the world is suffering. So I felt like there was a delicate sort of way to balance that. But at a certain point, I was like, no, I have been so unhappy and suffered. I have spent my years miserable and in darkness. And right now is about fashion and music for me and connecting with community and trying to help people in the midst of all of this. And I'm just not going to be shy about the fact that it actually finally, after 25 years of trying to make this happen, worked.
Woohoo! Yeah. Well, and I just for the record, if anyone hasn't been following you on social media through 2020, all of the 20s, Like, it's not like you
To
were
be
like,
fair, it did feel like thousands of years.
yes. And it still feels like 2020 is still going. So we
Yeah,
can just
for
keep
sure.
adding 20s because that's what it feels like. But for anyone that hadn't followed you along all of this, like, it's not like you were saying, oh, I'm doing great and I'm happy. So therefore, I'm going to go out and party my face off and hang out with people. And like, you might be the person that I know who quarantined the most seriously. Like, you were like, I'm
Yeah.
not leaving your house. Even watching your newest music video is like, you, I'm pretty sure, like, in your apartment, right?
Oh yeah, both of those were. Yeah, no, I didn't leave. I couldn't leave. It felt like I didn't want to get sick, didn't want to give anything to my parents, didn't want to give anything to my community, just didn't know. And then I got vaccinated and I had like a good 3 months, I think. It might have been 3 weeks. I can't remember. But I was like, everything's kind of okay. I went out to dinner a couple of times. Like I did some things that felt normal. And then, this stuff just kind of tanked again. And I'm still sort of waiting on data around boosters and all that before I feel safe to go out. But you're very right that I stayed home. That whole stay home, save lives. I made that my personality. And there's a certain thing that happened, I think, with that, in that I'm like, a person with anxiety. I have persistent mental health stuff. And it takes a lot for me to be an extroverted person in the entertainment industry. It takes a lot for me to be like a figurehead of an organization. It takes a lot for me to be like a public person who's like a spokesperson for a brand. Like all those things that I do, like in the old world, I had a long ramp up to get to the point where I was able to do it. And then after it was over, I had a long come down. And what happened in 2020 was like the front end and the back end of all my experiences got totally taken out. So you could just focus, show up, do my work. There was none of this like becoming Logan Lynn and then unbecoming him at the end of the day. I was just able to sort of, be myself throughout. And it was really easy. It was much easier. And in that sense, I think I thrived in the moment and was able to really see some projects through. And I have built up a skill around being alone or being in trauma and being able to still sort of see past that and move forward. Like that's sort of how I've survived my existence. So I applied some of those skills and actually was able to, I think, bounce forward in a way that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is very cool, and cool to hear the whole like thought process and that it was very intentional too.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I knew that I was going to have a moment where I was like, oh, quarantine suits me, but I did, and
I did too. I wasn't expecting it. And yes, obviously, as we've mentioned, like COVID freaking sucks.
Horrible,
I hate that people had to be sick, have to continue to be sick, that so many people have died. Like it's horrible for so many reasons. But there was definitely a big part of me that was like, ooh, there's a level of anxiety gone because I don't have to like go anywhere and like be things for people.
Yeah. 100%. And I think a lot of people aren't introverts or aren't ambiverts and can't relate to what we're saying right now. Like people who are extroverts and legitimately thrive in group environments or in an office or whatever, they have been suffering. I feel bad for them because they are having the experience that I normally have in the regular world. Right. But it's like reverse. So it's been interesting. I think the whole music industry cracked open, which then I was able to sort of step into a new place. I think a lot of stuff in philanthropy sort of had to pivot at a time when I wasn't like steeped in history where like I was nimble. We can move, we can follow this wherever it goes. Like that, I think all served me pretty well.
Yeah. I have also seen you post though about how the pandemic and quarantine and everything like was a bit of a test for you and your recovery.
Oh my God.
Right?
Fear is not great for me. Being afraid to like get the mail and have it be like a 3 a.m. Mission Impossible experiment to like get the mail safely. Like I'm not into that. I before I was vaccinated was terrified. and actually like didn't thrive in a lot of those ways. Like I had to really do all this other stuff, I think, to keep myself safe from really going into the fear. But it would have been really easy for me to be like, I don't have to see anyone. No one will know. I can party in here. I
Ooh,
could party
yeah.
one day a week, or like, I don't know what it is. I clearly all those bad plans didn't sort of
Right.
get
Yeah.
fleshed out, but I didn't, like I feel really proud of myself that I was able to sort of sit with the fear, put all of what I was feeling into songs instead of like taking it out on myself. I had a real productive trauma this round.
A productive trauma. Whoa.
Well, I mean, this shit didn't knock me out. It didn't like the pandemic happened around me. It was traumatizing, and I was productive in the midst of it all. I decided to stay focused and create things and start new traditions with my parents long distance that didn't exist before, like watching Wheel of Fortune every night and things like that together.
Like virtually?
Right? Like, yeah, like
that's
we
so
like
cute.
watch it together, Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune 5 nights a week. And that didn't exist before. So I'm also kind of grateful for those opportunities. Like I think it's a weird phrase. Like I had a productive trauma this round, but like a lot of times in the past when I was experiencing something really negative or the world was going through something really negative, I compounded that trauma with my own behavioral health stuff or my own whatever creative reaction to misery I was having at any given time. And this just, it didn't hit me that way this round.
Wow, look at you growing and just learning all the things, and amazing.
I think locked in the house, I have a skill set for how to keep myself safe when I'm by myself.
Yeah. Speaking about trauma, I recently read Oprah and Dr. Bruce Perry's book, What Happened to You?
Yeah.
And when I saw that book come out, I was like, wait a minute. Everybody's saying that now? That was something Logan talked to me about.
I know. It's charming.
But I love, A, they stole it from you or your therapist that said it to you. But B, I just love that is something like we're talking about trauma in the world and how it affects us and plays into our lives, even if we don't notice. So
yeah, I think trauma-informed care has had a real moment over the last few years. Like when I was first starting to do public advocacy around this, like what has happened to you, it's not what's wrong with you, or like having sort of a view of it like a coming out experience, right? That was uncommon. It was really uncommon. And now it's very common. I think it's like, it's the dream that all of us had originally a long time ago, that it would someday be normal and that celebrities would be talking about it and that regular people would feel permission to talk about it. I mean, celebrities are regular people too, but you know what I'm saying? Non-celebrities. And that academia and the medical industry would sort of put the brain back on the body. Like all of those things, I used to feel like there was like me and Sheila Hamilton and like, 10 other people that were actively sort of always on that trip. And now it's more of a community adopted narrative, which is awesome. That was the goal. And I think anytime Oprah does something, that means that it has reached some sort of, mainstream point where it matters to a lot of people. And I'm really happy about that.
Yeah. Because I remember you told me once that was like a big moment for you when a therapist actually asked you, like, what happened to you? So why did it mean so much to you?
Yeah. I mean, I had gone to rehab so many times during the course of my 16-year addiction. I was addicted to crack and alcohol and cocaine and different things. The reason I named both crack and cocaine is because I was using both at the same time, even though it's kind of the same drug, and just whatever else you got, right? Like I had many, many years where I was on drugs and high and sort of had taken myself out of the world. And a lot of that ended with hospitalizations where I was overdosing publicly or hurt myself in some way that like landed me in the hospital. And it has to have been like the 16th time. Like I think we've, it was certainly a lot of that happened multiple times in a year. But like, if you average it out over the course of my active addiction, I could have gone to rehab basically once a year during that 16-year period. And on the final time, I had like a really scary overdose where I had like a pre-stroke situation where like my limbs didn't work and things like that.
Gosh.
And it was just like freaking horrible and felt like the closest to death that I had ever actually gotten. And I was at a point in my life right then where I was okay with that. Like I was fully trying to kill myself, but in a way that was like, sort of over time.
Yeah.
And the doctor that sort of found me in that state really challenged me around like, did you want to become homeless? Why are you doing this? Like, did you decide to hurt your family, hurt yourself, ruin your professional life? Like, why are you doing this? And for whatever reason, it angered me in that moment, like where I was like, of course I didn't choose this, like that.
Yeah.
I was sort of incensed at the accusation. And he, in that moment, leaned in and said, well, tell me what happened to you then. If you didn't choose this, why are you doing it? And I think that moment, for probably the mixture of just knowing that I was near the end of the line, and that I had no other options. And also just like my being kind of punk rock and not liking authority to tell me anything at that point, but for sure not tell me about my struggle or what I've decided to do, like any of that. Like that was like a full deal breaker in my world.
Yeah.
And so I think I met the challenge in that moment. I decided to let him help me. And he did, I trusted him for months then, where like he was able to help get me on the right medication, which then made it possible for me to do therapy, which then made it possible for me to sort of unwind the years of being in the streets and doing whatever it takes to survive out there. And it's been a process, like I got well in 2008, started getting well in 2008. And I'm still on that journey. I am in my 13th year of long-term recovery. Feel really happy about it. Feel proud of myself. Think that it's kind of a miracle, as far as like where I was when I finally got sort of helped. I was a lost cause, and no one at that hospital thought that I would survive or that I would even come back for another round of rehab. So the fact that it worked is really amazing. And I think I found some compassion for myself in that initial conversation, like really thinking through what had happened to me, and like what had happened to me early on was sexual abuse and violence in a way that I had never processed, that I had sort of internalized and taken on as my own issue that I had created. And, like just like stereotypical sort of textbook stuff that happens to folks that experience sexual violence when they're young people. But I, started reconnecting with the story of like the real story of what had happened in my life. And that allowed me to feel like worthy of exploring it. I think once I realized that I hadn't actually created all of this myself, that I wasn't actually a bad person who deserved X, Y, and Z, repeat, I was able to give myself enough space to really let people help me.
Wow. Yeah. As I even saw in your post about Recovery Month during September, that you said something like, shout out to anyone who believed that I was worth it when I didn't believe it myself. And that just is so heartbreaking to me, but also beautiful to hopefully now be on the other side where you do believe in yourself and want to be here.
I do. People loved me through it, even though I was really awful to be around, and you couldn't really have me in your life. I was toxic. I was a criminal. I was like all these things that like just didn't work with regular people, and certainly didn't work in any kind of professional environment either. So I was often fired. I was often sort of like kicked out. All the things that happened to drug addicts were happening to me pretty regularly. But I had this sort of through line of love. You know, my friend Ruth was always there for me throughout all of it, even though she had, you know, definite boundaries at certain points. I always knew that she loved me. My friend Anna loved me. My parents, even though that was really complicated, you know, that I knew that they also really loved me, you know, and I was mad that they didn't keep me safe as a child, but I also knew that they would have if they could have, right? So like, as the drugs sort of pulled away, I was able to see the love that had sort of kept me afloat in the times when I was absolutely disconnected from all of them and myself and the world. I do think that that was a powerful piece, and that it gave me something to come back to also, you know, like once people realized that I was actually going to make a change, that somebody had reached me, that I had sort of cracked the code around what was happening to me and why I was taking drugs and why I wanted to die, like all of these things, I think people felt safe to lean in a little bit with me again. And so, you know, I started repairing my relationship with my family, started having a relationship with myself, started, you know, feeling things again, which allowed me to sort of circle back on all with what my friends who I had discarded or, you know, any of the people along the way who had been, I think, hurt by me in some way. I really have clarity around that now. And I didn't at the time. You know, I felt my view was like very put upon and very much like I was the victim no matter what I did. Like I was being victimized. And it's true. Like the reason I was homeless, the reason I was on drugs was a response to what had happened to me as a victim. But like I also, you know, I was the problem at a certain point. And so I think it's been cool to be able to reconnect with all those folks. And for the folks that will never reconnect with me, that I just absolutely hurt or discarded in a way that was unfair at the time. And, you know, I don't even have any business reaching out to apologize. I hope that my life in the years since has served as an apology to those folks as well. You know, that folks feel like, you know, 13 years of me trying to make it right. And ongoing, you know, like it's not like I'm like, sweet, 13 years, thanks guys.
Right.
Like
now my life is great. I was never that person.
Gucci gang. I want to make sure that I'm still always acknowledging that I was that person. And you know, like he deserved love too. Like he had a lot go wrong in his life, in my life. And I did what I think I did the best I could with what I had to work with. And my best was just super terrible. So I don't fault people for, you know, clicking away if they see me come on their timeline, but I also hope that they see enough and have accidentally seen enough over the years to know that like I'm not that person anymore, and I've really healed and grown, and I think recovery is magic in those ways, right? That actually you can become yourself, who you were always supposed to be, become that person for the first time, become that person again. And recovery looks different for everybody too, right? I think like that was a problem for me, is trying to one size fits all what had happened to me, when really our experiences are all totally different, and therefore our addictions and our reactions to those experiences are as well. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I feel like there's like a thing that's happened over the last few years where I feel really also proud of the person I was before in ways, just for surviving. Actually, like the fact that I made it through that 16-year period and have been able to build on that foundation something that actually not just resembles a life, but is a life that's worth living. Like I feel like honoring all of that struggle as well.
Have you been putting off a visit to the doctor for way too long? Yeah, I do that too. And when I finally do call and make an appointment, the doctor's office usually tells me the next available appointment is months away. That's why I've started going to Zoom+Care. With locations in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Colorado, Zoom+Care offers same-day doctor visits that you can book online or from their app. Yep, you don't have to talk to anyone on the phone. They even offer mental health visits, where you can speak to a board-certified mental health provider in person or through video. Zoom+Care is where I went last year for my ADHD diagnosis, and they made the process so simple. They really took away my stress. So if you're ready to make an appointment of your own, head to zoomcare.com. That's Zoom+Care, ZOOMCARE.com.
Now, back to the show.
It's very clear that you have gone through trauma therapy and all you've talked about it, because all of these things somehow, I'm sure it's not easy to talk about, but you talk about these things like, oh, I was addicted. Oh, I did this. Oh, I wanted to die. You say these things as if they are not huge things, because they're, they are life and they are trauma and they are things that we should be able to talk about, but it's so difficult. And especially, you talk about just the whole topic of suicide has such a huge stigma attached to it. Unfortunately, we're working to break down, we talk about anxiety, we talk about depression, we talk about ADHD, but ooh, that's a deep one. That how do we
a bridge too
there?
Far?
Yeah.
No, I just reject all of that. I have rejected all of that. When I was a drug addict, I was like, guess what? I'm on cocaine. I never hit it, ever. I sang about being a crackhead. I was open about it. And so that certainly didn't change once I got well. I'm like, come on.
That's a great point. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
I think it's interesting. If I had a chronic leg problem where I was having a hard time walking, I would never think twice about explaining my limp to you.
Right.
Ever. I would be like, yeah, I've got this shit with my leg. It sucks. And also I walk around. I'm a normal person.
Right.
And so the fact
or it would be pretty obvious if you showed up in a cast or whatever one day, you literally can't hide it. You're like,
right.
This is how I walk.
Visible, and some of it's ongoing, but I would never think twice. Same with a bunch of diseases. If I became ill, I would be like, guess what, friends? There's a GoFundMe, or it would be a normal sort of experience. But when it's your brain, people for whatever reason have been conditioned to feel like it's separate, or it's shameful, or it's somehow your fault that it's happening, or that you're pretending that it's happening. There are so many different things that get applied to people that say that they need help. In this, historically, I'd say that that's changing now, but historically, especially, that stigma has been what the whole industry is founded on. Even the mental health industry, it's actually also the calls coming from inside the house, right? It's problematic. So I think the more of us that speak out, about our lives, it is normal to me. I talk about it like it's normal because it is, and I don't know anything else. So sometimes and I've also told this story so many times at this point that it doesn't hold the same weight for me around I'm not in active trauma as I relay it to you. Because I have actually done the healing and stuff that has to happen before you can tell stories like this. But I also think there's a piece of me that just, whenever people are shocked, or they've only met me as this person, and then they find out that I was this other person, or they internet a little and they find out that I was this other person, because it's all very public. I think it's hard for people to relate. It's hard for people to sort of picture that I was ever anybody else, which does a disservice to me and the recovery community, right? I think the reason I keep bringing it up, the reason I post about it in Recovery Month, even though things are good in my life, is because I want people to know that shit can be good in your life too. I was a lost cause, and also my life got good. I'm fancy now. Things are good. I have great sort of professional and personal things that fill me up, and that just wasn't the case before. And I think if all of us got well and then just shut up about it, there wouldn't be the opportunity for other people to see a life for themselves beyond the life that they're currently sort of struggling to live.
Could say it sounds so cheesy, but it gets better,
or it gets worse, and then better,
right,
and then better eventually, right? It's
there is a possibility that it could get better. So
it will change.
Let's try.
Life will change.
Yeah. What would you, because you just said, sometimes it is hard for people to relate when they hear stories. They hear, even for me, like I've struggled with depression and I very much know what it feels like to be like, I just want to sink into the couch and like have no one. This is why quarantine was so great sometimes. Like sink in the couch, have no one look at me ever again. I just want to like be a blob. And then I have days
Sign me
also,
up.
yeah. And then I have days also where I'm like, life is too much effort. Like it's so much effort to like do this and make decisions and like, but I very gratefully have never gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like I really don't want to be here anymore. And like, what I don't even know how to ask the question. I know it's obviously different for every single person who has struggled with suicidal ideation, but
Yeah.
if there's anything you could share that might let people in a little bit to go, okay, I can relate, because we're all humans. Like we have sad feelings, even if some of them are at this level and some of them are at this smaller level, you know?
Yeah, sadness is sadness. And like our pain is our pain. Like it's sort of hard to do a sliding scale, right? Like everybody's pain feels the same to them, I would imagine.
Yes.
I think that for me at least, I was always just trying to get it to stop. I wasn't actually trying to hurt myself when I did hurt myself. I wasn't trying to kill myself when I almost died. I wasn't trying to, ruin my life with drugs. I just needed it to stop. The trauma that had happened to me, I was in a trauma loop where I was like feeling it, experiencing it, thinking it, acting out on it. And I couldn't stop the loop. I couldn't get out of it. And the only way that I was able ever to feel calm or like I was at home was through crack. And at a certain point, my addiction to crack and alcohol became the problem, right? That was also what I was trying to make stop. So a lot of the interventions that I used when I was self-medicating fed a lot of the suicidal ideation. But I still have that, like I would say that I'm still a person that experiences this. And I have it managed now, where I sing about my feelings, I talk about my feelings, I take medication, I keep myself really safe. I don't shy away from this existing in my life. So I'm tending to it quite a bit, but I also don't have a car. I my big thing is I want to drive off the bridge, and I've driven off the bridge before. I've driven off the road before. Like that's the thing that the way that it presents for me. And so in my adult life, I take Uber. I can probably have a car. I probably can. Like I'm okay, but I don't. And the reason I don't is because that's an additional safeguard for me on my very worst day to know that I'm not going to be able to take a drive.
Yeah.
And so I would say that like for people that have that tendency or are struggling, like that, even when you're well, it's really important to keep yourself safe. And I just I take all possibilities off the table for myself. So I don't hang out with drug dealers. I don't have a car. I don't, put myself in relationship with people who are not on board with all of that.
Yeah.
And so, I guess for me, the experience is a little bit ongoing, but it's been recontextualized in that I like my life now. It is like it's a brain function that has existed for so long in my world that it doesn't necessarily go away, but it's super managed. And I'm sure that like my mom's probably listening to this, totally freaking out. Other people are hearing this thinking like, oh, he doesn't sound super well. Why can't he have a car? I can. I had a car a few years ago, whatever. It turned out to be a disaster.
But you also are like fine not having a car. So therefore you're like,
why would I? If
sometimes I don't want to have a car just because like, is it really more expensive to take Ubers than own a car? I don't know. So
Uber sucks during the pandemic. I will say that. It's a big reason for why I'm stuck in here more. But in regular world, it serves me to just not have a bunch of knives around, you know?
Yeah. Yep. That is fair. How do you think we continue to break down the stigma of talking about things like this. Like, you know, we're doing it by talking here. You do it literally every day by just talking about these things, but
Yeah,
I hope we
think
can
that's
get
the
there.
only way. I talk about all this stuff so openly that even mental health advocates are like, ugh. Which is the goal. If mental health
I'm not here to
advocates,
make you comfortable.
like, you're in the wrong industry. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like if my story and me being open about it, or me saying like harm reduction works, like any of the things that like have worked for me,
Mhm.
I often feel are not super, received on from sort of the industry. So yeah, you're in the wrong profession. But I always feel like talking about it until people stop wrinkling their nose is probably the thing that will work. I do
Mhm.
think celebrities help. Like, I know that sounds really stupid to say, but like thinking about the culture shift, I think it often happens by way of media, by way of pop culture, by way of people that folks already idolize or are connected to, in an emotional way, sort of leading them to new bodies of water. And it
Mhm.
feels like that's happening pretty regularly now, which is
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, but I
Yes.
think stigma is going to always be real until those of us that have these feelings, those of us that struggle, those of us that have parents or families that have these feelings and struggle, as long as we are staying silent about it, then other people are going to feel like they need to stay silent about it too.
Mhm.
And I think it's starting to even out versus like before, where it was like, okay, there's these 10 people that are always talking about this, and then there's everybody else. Like, now I think success looks like people feeling free to talk about this as part of what they're going through at any given time, not necessarily making it like the only thing you talk about, but like
Yeah.
having it be like a normal part of conversation.
Yeah. And you have done this, I mean, for years. You are part of so many different organizations. I literally have a list. I'm like, I got to keep track of all the things Logan does besides just all of his music. But you co-founded the Keep Oregon Well nonprofit, which was like 7 years ago at this point,
Yeah,
right?
2014, 2015, partnered with a mental health organization in Oregon to sort of think about what would a pop culture campaign look like for mental health. And we have that whole keep Portland weird piece. We partnered with those folks to use that same design, and it was great. That's how I met Sheila Hamilton. Certainly how we got like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bands to come out about their own mental health.
Yeah.
And that really led to my relationship with Portugal the Man. I had met them before when I was actually in my active addiction, and was not impressive to any of them. And then when that campaign was happening, they were one of the bands that played the concert series. And
Oh.
I met them, sort of started talking deeper with them about that. And then they invited me to come on tour with them a year or so later, like after they'd gone around the world once, and we're sort of starting to do another Oregon thing, just to activate the crowds around mental health. So like there's tons of footage of me going out in front of the sea of people and just welcoming people to the show, and also saying I'm a suicide survivor, right? Just like trying to make it normal in that rock and roll environment. And I think what happened on that tour was I really saw how much the band cared about the community, saw how much they were doing, and also saw that I could be helpful to all of that I actually know how to organize some of this in a way that could amplify the Portugal the Man efforts around advocacy, around human rights, mental health, all of the stuff that they were already doing. And so I joined that team pretty immediately. I was like, hell yes, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And have been in that process with them ever since. We started in 2018 with that tour I just mentioned. And then over the course of 2019, really built out structurally what their foundation would look like, what community engagement would look like from a Portugal the Man standpoint, and then launched PTM Foundation in 2020. We were supposed to launch in March of 2020, and I don't know if you remember.
I don't know. I have to look back at my calendar and see what I did that month.
there were some things happening in the world that made it difficult. So, full lockdown
Yeah.
happened. Our big gala event got canceled.
Right.
And all of our best laid plans for the year kind of evaporated, just like everybody else's. But what's cool about that is Portugal the man and me and everybody involved, we were all down to sort of pivot together and figure out a way that we can show up in the time of COVID for the communities that we had intended to sort of engage in this other way. And it really worked. We started shipping PPE to Alaska, to tribes that would have otherwise not had masks or gowns or hand sanitizer. Like we got real practical on how we help the community. So that was how that all sort of turned out. But a lot of that is rooted in trauma-informed care, in the mental health sort of principles, in community health principles that I have cared about for some time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then if you keep going down the list, then you have .gay, which,
yes,
I always like to believe that we can use the internet for good, even though sometimes it feels like it is not.
Right.
I feel like you, with .gay, you are literally trying to make the internet a better, healthier, safer place, right?
Yeah. Part of the fun of being me over the years is and being first.
That's the best beginning of a sentence. I love it.
I was just like first in some of these very uncomfortable ways. Maybe not first, but like I'm very open about all this stuff. Certainly in the music industry, I don't know that it was a real common theme back in 2015. And my first record came out in 1998, and I've been openly gay this whole time, singing about gay stuff. So I have always had trolls. Always. I was on TV. I got a group of them. I have like the Christian background where some of those people really follow me and, hate me as like for sport. And then the coming out about sexual abuse or just mental health, all of that exists so publicly that trolls actually at a certain point in 2018 really organized against me, really terribly homophobic, trying to get me to kill myself essentially through an online campaign where 28,000 of them were commenting on every post I made.
28,000?
It was horrible. It was horrible. I was in People magazine about it because it was so bad. But that reaction I had to that, again, being kind of punk rock, was to be like, no, I'm going to make this work, not just for me, but also for my community, because everybody else is just accepting that this is how the internet is, that like, oh yeah, Reddit, you're getting tortured on Reddit. That's because that's what happens on Reddit. It's like, no, that is a absolutely unacceptable business model. So I started fighting tech companies at that time, started going after their investors with legal threats, started being so dirty and annoying on the back end that finally we got a hold of the people that we needed to get a hold of. And luckily I had a team. Like not every queer or trans person that's getting tortured online has a team of people. They can be like, all right, everybody, we're going to take down Goliath. Anyway, I did have a team. And so I used that team and my experience first to do a public storytelling campaign, which was People magazine, all sorts of LGBTQ media, me on the internet every day, just posting what I was going through. And then eventually working with Reddit and other companies to get some of those policies changed, specifically around what was happening with this group on their site and me. And that led then to the folks at .gay partnering with me to help completely inform the safety and abuse policies. And just also we used all that experience of me and several other LGBTQ people who had found themselves the target of this over the years, used those experiences to think through what would a safer, better internet look like for queer and trans people? And can we use .gay to help folks? So we did. .gay launched. It's a fundraiser for GLAAD and Centerlink, which is the community of LGBT centers all across the globe. So every donation, every name that's registered equals a donation to those orgs that are helping keep people safe in the real world, while we with each site that gets registered, transform the internet into a safer place. And we take down sites. If you belong to a hate group, we take your money, we donate it. and then we take down your site.
Yes. Oh,
that's
perfect.
part of our policy. Like it's built into the business model to actually, sort of Robin Hood some of the trolls.
I love it. Yeah. And if anyone doesn't know, it's basically, as you alluded to, like anyone can buy a domain. So you can be like today, I was like, oh, I wonder what Logan's website is. Oh, it's obviously, I typed in loganlynn.gay and there it was taking me to all the info about your new music. I was like, yes, of course it is.
Yeah, it's just like
makes so much
.com
sense.
or .edu or .org, but fabulous. And we're the only ones that have this anti-hate policy. We're the only place that for sure, if you see a .gay domain, that they are in support of LGBTQ people, that they've donated to LGBTQ causes, and that you're not going to get harassed, abused, doxxed, tortured, any of the things they like to do on all the other domains.
I love that. That's so cool. Way to make the internet and the world better with all of those things.
Thank you. It has been pretty fun. It was the most successful internet domain launch in internet history.
Yes.
Which was really cool. And I just throughout the whole thing was like, suck it, trolls. You suck it. Because it not only helped the world, but it also helped me a great deal.
And you literally get to tell them to suck it. Like you just, man, that's genius. Yeah,
their trolling ended up with me getting a big payday. So thank you.
Thank you very much. 28,000. Oh my God. I can't even
love you. Mean
that many people. Jeez.
It was really scary at the time. But was, I think, good for me in a way in that the worst has happened. My worst internet fears, like where people are just making stuff up, just absolutely generating fake news, making documentaries about me and people in my life, like all of that has happened. And so I'm a little bit free now. I feel like zero fear. I say what I want to say, and I always did, but I think there was a little bit of me that knew that I needed to hold back a little, maybe around sort of exposing myself. I just don't feel that way anymore. I feel free.
Turn it around, turn it into something amazing.
That's awesome. Make fun of me, I make money.
Yes. Like I said, if you go to loganlynn.gay, it has all the info about your new music because you have your 10th studio album coming out.
I do, on Kill Rock Stars. I got signed my whole life. I have loved Kill Rock Stars. All their bands have influenced my music. Anybody who's listened to my music would know that sort of off sort of one listen. And so for them to come and adopt me and my songs 25 years into my career is really special.
That's so cool. What can we expect from the new music? Is it because some of your stuff is super upbeat. Let's dance it out, whether you're at a club or in our apartments, quarantining alone. And then some of it's more emotional, serious,
right?
Vulnerable.
Yeah, this is a party record for sure. It's a dance record. I wrote the whole thing during being locked in here by myself. And so it's a lot about coming together after whatever that looks like. I think I wrote a lot about the things I wished I were doing during the times where I wasn't able to do anything. So it's super happy. It's a happy record, upbeat. I think rooted in gay joy is probably the thing that I'm really trying to sort of center myself in this round. Certainly not a sad piano record. No.
And you have, as of when this episode is coming out, you have a new single coming out next week, October 28th. So if people are listening after that, it's already out. What do they get to listen to?
This new song is called Here's to Us. And it's the third single from my upcoming record, New Money, which comes out in January. Kill Rock Stars does a thing where they front load singles and videos sort of leading up to the release, which I've never thought to do, but I think is very fun. I like instant gratification. So the fact that we get to sort of have this release every month until the actual release for 6 months is very exciting.
Totally.
But yeah, this one is, I think, probably the slower of all the songs on this new record, but is still, it's still electronic. It's about feeling marginalized or put upon and sort of reclaiming this space in the back of the bus with all the other people that are marginalized and put upon. So cheers.
That's beautiful. So it's a party album, but it also has, there's serious.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still me.
Right. Yeah.
So I can't really escape him. But
Good.
yeah, no, it sounds very party, but then if you wanted to take a lyrical dive, there is certainly storytelling in there happening.
I looked at the list of all the songs on the album, and one of them that intrigued me is there anyone else like this in the world? Which in my head, without knowing any of the actual lyrics of the song or hearing the song and the vibe of it, it paints a picture in my head, but it might be very different than what it's like actually about.
Time will tell.
Ooh.
My label paid me to say that. No, I don't know. That one it's a dance song as well, but I think a lot of it is me sort of trying to find my people or calling out, casting a net to sort of find like-mindedness. I've been doing that for decades, and this one just happens to have a 4 on the floor beat.
I love it. That's awesome. What are the self-care habits that you try to do or that have helped you over all these years of, feeling shitty, feeling good, feeling in the middle?
Feeling shitty, feeling good, feeling in the middle.
Yeah,
Yep,
there's your next song.
That's the list. I think I have some that are probably pretty positive and some that are borderline vice, but still work. I like to shop. I like fashion. I'm going to put that in the borderline vice category. It still works and could be worse.
Yeah.
But I think stuff that I do that anyone can do is I write a lot. I watch a lot of TV. I let myself not have plans. If I don't want to have plans, I reschedule things if I feel like I'm not myself that day. I play with the dog a lot. I love the dog. I think those sort of simple life things are the things that actually end up mattering. I've done like intensive psychological treatment. I've gone in for retreats. I've done a lot of rehab, but ultimately the stuff that makes me feel happy and connected is like talking to my friends on the phone, watching the TV shows I like, then talking to my friends on the phone about that, and the dog feeling happy and feeling like she's got the right outfit on for that day. Like I'm into that.
If you've made it this far into this episode of Mentally Together, there's a chance you're enjoying it, maybe? So if you want to know more about what goes on behind the scenes of this show, come hang out on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll get the video version of each episode early, get to be the first to ask questions of each podcast guest, and get to see deleted video clips from each episode. Oh, and you'll hear things you won't hear anywhere else. Like from this episode. I loved talking to Logan so much, and I am so glad this episode is finally out into the world. But, it almost didn't get there, so I will tell you why over on Patreon. You can sign up and support our show at patreon.com/Cassidy Quinn. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/Cassidy Quinn. Now back to the show. Last but not least, we have a quick round of questions, which you can answer as quickly or as not quickly as you want.
Great.
Okay. When was the last time you cried?
Oh, last week.
Oh, a week ago, though. Wow. Just kidding.
Well, it's only Tuesday, right?
Yeah, true. What about the last time you had a big belly laugh? The opposite.
Last night. I was watching Wheel of Fortune, and the person I love it when they guess really bad. It's so good. And I got tickled at that.
Yes. What are you grateful for right now?
Grateful to be talking to you. And also, I'm just grateful to be here, to be happy and healthy.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to be talking to you, so thank you. What sound can calm you down or bring you joy when you hear it?
Oh, doggy sounds. Little dog feet on the floor coming my way. I love that.
It's very clear that your dog is much smaller than mine just by hearing you say that, because my dog's like...
Right. You have like a Jurassic Park thing.
Yeah, it's not as... And then when he decides to lay down, it's just like, boom, like this loud... I'm like, are you okay? What about a smell that can do that for you?
Oh, the Italian monks, Melograno, Santa Maria Novella. It's like ancient soap making monks in Italy. and they make a smell called Melograno, which I use their soap. They've been around for thousands of years using the same perfume vats. It's like from Bible times. And I have like an old, like, I don't know if I believe in like past life, but I have like a connection to that smell where it transports me.
Yeah. Ooh, I need to get one of those. What is the best thing you do for your mental health?
Oh, I think not making plans. I hate plans. I mean, I am a person that wants to like have a career and be fancy and do Hollywood stuff, but like actually getting out the door and doing them like feels rough. And I don't make myself if I don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm gonna play that over in my head like every day. Thank you.
It's a really good one.
What about the worst thing that you do for your mental health that maybe you don't want to do?
Oh, well, I think I have a hard time envisioning that I have a future still, even though I totally do, and I'm living in a, you know, like I'm actively pursuing a future. I just had no future for so long that I sometimes forget that I do, and so I can be kind of reckless with spending, or that's mainly how it presents at this point, to be honest. But it used to present in other ways, but like I have to kind of remind myself that like you're going to be alive for a while. Like you got to also save money. You got to also do like all these things that normal human adults do because you made it through the fire. Like
yeah. Yes. That's great. What is your favorite thing about your brain?
I'm quick. I think, you know, I have an answer for most things pretty quickly, which comes in handy in my line of work. And
in quick rounds of podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. I feel kooky still too, right? Like it's like a controlled kind of kook, but I still have maintained the part of me that I liked from before, even though I'm like a respectable adult in society now. I still have the creative pieces that allow me to be in music like I am and create like I do. I think those are the pieces that I value most.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When do you feel most yourself?
I think when I'm with my little brother, I feel, or people that knew me before and then can experience me now and feel just like stoked that this is the end of that story. Yeah, I'm reminded of who I was before and also like who we are now together.
Yeah, I love that. What's something you're really good at that people might not know?
I am a conflict resolution trained facilitator. And so when people are fighting, I am able to navigate that in a way that sort of keeps the group together.
Whoa, that's a cool skill.
Works out in music, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I bet. And then the last one is, if you had to get something tattooed on your forehead, we're like in this weird, stupid future that I've created for some reason where everyone gets a forehead tattoo. It's like your billboard to the world, but also you see it in the mirror. So to yourself, what would your forehead tattoo say?
Oh my God, let's get a brand to pay me for that.
Yes.
And then whatever brand pays me the most, they'll put their brand name on there.
So probably a Gucci tattoo on the forehead. Let's be honest.
Yeah, let's just monogram it.
I feel like they've got the money for it. Make it happen.
That was a bad answer, but I do think it's probably true. I know you were looking for something a little deeper.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
I would never get a face tattoo, and if I did, it's because someone paid me.
I think that's probably the most honest answer anyone may have given for that. And then, of course, where can people find you? LoganLynn.gay, obviously.
Yeah, LoganLynn.gay for all the music. LoganLynnmusic.com also sort of has like my blog and everything. That LoganLynn.gay is what New Money, the new record, is, the pre-order and all that is on. And then if you want to learn more about .gay, you just go to ohey.gay. You can get your own .gay name. If you want to learn more about PTM Foundation, that's ptmfoundation.org.
And then, is there anything else that you wish people would know about you or mental health or your new album? Anything that I just haven't asked you about that you're like, you know what? I want to say this.
I hope people like this new record. I hope they go watch my videos and that what we created resonates with people in a way that matters.
Yes, it does. And you matter. And Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for sharing so much and having these difficult, really difficult for me still, but you're like, oh, old news. We can talk about all these things. So thank you. I appreciate
I'm
you
happy.
and all the things that you do for the world. So
thanks. Happy to be on your show. Always happy to have these conversations and hope other people will too.
And thank you, wonderful human, for listening to this episode of Mentally Together. We put out new episodes every Monday, or at least that's the intention. Just remember that. So I, Cassidy Quinn, will see you next week. In the meantime, do something nice for your brain today. Maybe do some online shopping, some retail therapy, cancel some plans if you don't feel like following through with them, or put on some of Logan's music and have a dance party around your house. Whatever will make your day just a little bit better. And don't forget to check out Logan's new album, New Money with Kill Rock Stars, that comes out on January 21st, but you can pre-order it now, and while you're waiting, just follow Logan on social media for some greatness, happiness, and lots of realness. Because remember, we are all just trying to keep ourselves mentally together. Mentally Together is produced, hosted, and edited by Cassidy Quinn in collaboration with Koba FM, a podcast network that is all about community, baby.